Fort Bowie was set up in 1862 to protect a water source called Apache Springs, and it later turned from a temporary fort into a permanent fort 1865 and ran until 1894, with the military side really starting to wane away around 1886 with the surrender of Geronimo in Skeleton Canyon, Mexico. You come here in Fort Bowie, you get a mile and a half in, a mile and a half out. You get so much history coming through. You get to see Apache Springs, which doesn't have as much water as everyone thinks it does, but it still is water, which is pretty cool for the desert. And you get to walk out, you get beautiful scenery, and then you get to turn around, go 10 miles that way, and get to see one of the most beautiful places I think I've ever seen in my life, which is Chiricahua National Monument.
Well, it was just nice to get away from our road and cars and just to appreciate the setting out here, kind of in the middle of nowhere. I have visited probably about 200 or so units of the National Park Service. Um, I do a lot of hiking and backpacking, although obviously I'm not equipped today for much hiking. This was a spur of the moment trip. I'm planning on coming back and probably spending about 2 days in the area, camping at the National Monument and coming out here to hike all the trails.
We're Canadians, but still, it's interesting to look at the history. And so, yeah, we're passing through the area. We travel and we see something of interest, and we go in and look at it. So we generally have a national park pass, so that allows us to go into all the parks, all the forts, all the historic type sites. So yeah, we wander in, look around, and gather a little information along the way. I just like to look at these places and just picture in my mind what it was like back in the day, and I do that everywhere I go.
My favorite part of Fort Bowie, that's going to be a really dumb answer, but it's going to be the heliograph station and site. The heliograph is one of the coolest things I've ever seen here. It's a tripod with a 6-inch by 6-inch mirror, and it was used to relay the other fort using visual Morse code, which was invented by, well, technically Samuel S.B. Morse in 1844, but in 1867 was turned into a visual by a British naval commander. And then heliographs were popularized in Africa and then used here. And the reason they decided to use them here was because the Apaches kept cutting the telephone lines. So knowing that how much of this war was fought visually, it's super, super cool. There was about 20 miles between each relay station, and you could go 8 relay stations, which was over 200 miles, and send and receive a message within 2 hours and 27 minutes, which is super cool. They did some testing in 1890, and the longest heliograph relay to relay was 183 miles during the day and 6 miles at night. And just the fact that the entire war was fought with visual communication is super, super cool. Like you had O. Howard and Tom Jeffords going in to make peace with Cochise in 1872, and they lit 5 signal bonfires around his camp before entering to show it was for peace. So just cool little facts like that. It's important not only because it protects the history of the United States, but it also is a really important story for the Native Americans that lived in the area. So preserving the fort gives you a piece of what the life was like, but also it gives us a chance to tell the story about everyone that was around here and what the war really looked like from both sides.
I believe very strongly in open space. And of course, many of the units of the park system are historic ones. And so I think often anymore there's not an appreciation of history. I don't think history is that well taught anymore. And so I do think that the preservation and the need for open spaces is very important.